Hello and welcome. In this video, I will show you how to create a widget that displays the user's profile information such as name, gender, age, and email. First, you need to create a profile screen class. Then, inside the main screen and inside the bottom navigation bar, we use this function will push the profile screen to the navigation stack and display it on top of the main screen. Next, we will copy the app bar widget from the notification screen class that we created in the previous video, and we remove the actions property. Next, in body, we use a single child scroll view widget, which enables scrolling if the content is larger than the screen size. The child of the single child scroll view widget is a padding widget, which adds some space around the content. The child of the padding widget is a column widget, which arranges its children vertically. The first child of the column widget is a center widget, which centers its child horizontally. The child of the center widget is a sized box widget, which defines the size of its child. We set the height and width of the sized box widget to 140 pixels, which will be the size of the user's profile image. The child of the sized box widget is a stack widget, which layers its children on top of each other. The children of the stack widget are the user's profile image and the edit icon. The first child of the stack widget is a ClipRRect widget, which clips its child with a rounded rectangle shape. We set the border radius of the ClipRRect widget to 20 pixels, which will create a smooth curve around the corners of the image. The child of the ClipRRect widget is an image widget, which displays an image from an asset file. We set the fit property to boxFit.cover, which means the image will cover the entire space of the ClipRRect widget without distorting its aspect ratio. We set the height and width of the image widget to 120 pixels, which will be slightly smaller than the size box widget. The second child of the stack widget is a positioned widget, which allows us to place its child at a specific location relative to the stack. We set the bottom and right properties to 0 pixels, which means the child will be aligned with the bottom and right edges of the stack. The child of the positioned widget is a sized box widget, which will define the size of the edit icon. The child of the sized box widget is an icon button widget, which will display the edit icon as a button that can be pressed. We set the onPressed property to an empty function, which means nothing will happen when the icon is pressed. You can add your own logic here to handle the edit action. The child of the icon button widget is a container widget, which will contain the edit icon. We add some padding around the icon to create some space between the icon and the background. We decorate the container with a white circle shape to create a contrast with the icon and the image. We add a box shadow to create a 3D effect for the icon. The child of the container is the SVG picture widget, which will display the icon as a vector graphic. We specify the asset name of the icon, which is stored in the Assets Icons folder. We set the height of the icon to 30 pixels, which will scale the icon proportionally. The second child of the column widget is a size box widget, which adds some vertical space between the profile image and the upload image text. The third child of the column widget is a text widget, which displays the upload image text. The fourth child of the column widget is a size box widget, which adds some more vertical space between the upload image text and the name row. The fifth child of the column widget is a row widget, which arranges its children horizontally. We set the cross-axis alignment property to cross-axis alignment end, which means the children will be aligned with the bottom edge of the row. The children of the row widget are the name text and the name input field. The first child of the row widget is a text widget, which displays the name text. The second child of the row widget is a sized box widget, which adds some horizontal space between the name text and the name input field. The third child of the row widget is an expanded widget, which will take the remaining space of the row. The child of the expanded widget is a text form field widget, which allows the user to enter their name. We set the controller property to name controller. The controller will allow us to get and set the text value of the input field. We define a text editing controller object for each input field. We define an initState function, which is a Flutter function that is called when the widget is first created. We use this function to set the initial values of the input fields and the gender selection. We set the text value of the name controller, which is the user's name. We set the text value of the age controller, which is the user's age. We set the text value of the email controller, which is the user's email. We set the style property to a text style object, which defines the appearance of the text in the input field. We set the decoration property to an input decoration object, which defines the appearance of the input field. The sixth child of the column widget is a sized box widget, which adds some vertical space between the name row and the gender row. The children of the row widget are the gender text and the gender selection widgets. The first child of the row widget is a text widget, which displays the gender text. The second child of the row widget is a sized box widget, which adds some horizontal space between the gender text and the gender selection widgets. The third child of the row widget is a gesture detector widget, which detects gestures on its child and invokes a callback function. We set the onTap property to a function that updates the state of the underscore selected value variable to 1, which means the user selects the first option. We define an integer variable for the gender selection, which will determine which radio button is selected in the group of radio buttons. We set the value of the underscore selected value variable to 1, which means the user selects the first gender option. The child of the gesture detector widget is a container widget, which displays the first gender option. We add some padding to the right of the container widget to create some space. We decorate the container widget with a color and a border radius, which will change depending on the value of the underscore selected value variable. If the underscore selected value variable is 1, the color will be black. If the underscore selected value variable is not 1, the color will be white and the border will be a thin black line. The child of the container widget is a row widget. The children of the row widget are the radio button and the text for the first gender option. The first child of the row widget is a radio widget, which displays a circular button that can be selected or deselected. We set the value property to 1, which means this radio button represents the first option. We set the group value property to underscore selected value, which is an integer variable that we assume is already defined and initialized. The group value property determines which radio button is selected in a group of radio buttons. If the value property matches the group value property, the radio button is selected, otherwise it is deselected. We set the active color property to colors.white, which means the color of the radio button when it is selected will be white. We set the onChange property to a function that updates the state of the underscore selected value variable to the value of the radio button when it is changed. The onChange property is a callback function that takes an integer parameter, which is the value of the radio button. The setState function is a Flutter function that rebuilds the widget with the new state. The second child of the row widget is a text widget, which displays the text for the first gender option. We set the text to male, which is the first gender option. We set the color property to a conditional expression, which means the color will depend on the value of the underscore selected value variable. If the underscore selected value variable is 1, the color will be white, otherwise it will be gray. We set the font size to 18 pixels and the font weight to bold. The fourth child of the row widget is a sized box widget, which adds some horizontal space between the two gender options. We copy the gesture detector of the first gender option, and we change the selected value variable to 2, which means the user selects the second option. Next, the eighth child of the column widget is a sized box widget, which adds some vertical space between the gender row and the age row. The ninth child of the column widget is a row widget. The children of the row widget are the age text and the age input field. The first child of the row widget is a text widget, which displays the age text. We set the controller property to age controller. The 10th child of the column widget is a sized box widget, which adds some vertical space between the age row and the email row. The first child of the row widget is a text widget, which displays the email text. We set the controller property to email controller. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and learned something new. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching and see you next time.